Hello, I'm Mike Hayes and welcome to Jazz Guitar Chord-melody, Part 69. In this session, our focus will be on the A-flat 6th diminished scale, also known as the A-flat major bebop scale. Our first step will be to learn the notes in the A-flat 6th diminished scale. And if you recall from previous sessions, this is simply the major scale with an additional sharpened fifth note. So the notes in our A-flat 6th diminished scale will be A-flat, B-flat, C, D-flat, E-flat, E, F, G. Let's start by playing this on the guitar. And as you'll recall from our previous sessions on the major 6th diminished scale, we're going to start by playing a chord. In this instance, it's going to be an A-flat major chord. Then we're going to play the A-flat 6th diminished scale, and then play the chord once more. And remember, why we're doing this is so that we associate the sound of the scale with the chord. Here goes. The next step will be to play a linear scale version of this A-flat major 6th scale. In this instance, we're going to play the scale on the first string, so we'll be starting on the note F. Here we go. Okay, we're up and running, and as we've mentioned in previous discussions, the beauty of this major 6th diminished scale is that it only produces two chords. It produces different inversions of these chords, but there's only two chords. So the two chords that are produced from the A-flat major 6th diminished scale are A-flat 6th and a diminished chord built on the major 7th of the scale. So the major 7th of A-flat is G, therefore our diminished chord will be G diminished. So that's our two chords, A-flat 6th and G diminished. Our next step will be to play the various inversions of A-flat 6th on the first four strings of the guitar. Here we go. Right then, the next step will be to play the various inversions of the G diminished chord on the first four strings. Okay, it's time to put all this together now and play the harmonised version of the A-flat major 6th diminished scale on the first four strings. Here goes. I've been referring to these two chords as A flat sixth and G diminished. However, as you'll recall from our previous sessions, the diminished chord can function as a dominant seventh, flat 9. So I'm now going to play through the same harmonized scale, only I'm going to be thinking about these two chords as alternating between an A flat sixth and an E flat 7, flat 9. You'll be playing the exact same shapes, we'll just be thinking about these chords in a different way. And to help us get used to the sound of an A flat 6 moving to an E flat 7, flat 9, I'm going to have the bass play an A flat note underneath the A flat 6 chord and an E flat note as we play the G diminished chord. Here we go. And now, of course, the name of the game is not how many things we know, but rather what we can do with the things that we already do know. So along that line of thinking, let's consider that this A flat sixth could also be called an F minor seventh. And the G diminished chord could also function as a C7 flat 9. So let's play the same sequence again, this time thinking of the two chords as alternating between an F minor 7 and a C7 flat 9. And once again, so we can hear the effect of this type of thinking, I'll have the bass play an F note under our A flat 6 shape and a C note under our G diminished. Here goes. Okay, now we're going to introduce a couple of different concepts that we haven't had in the series so far. The first one is that we're going to play across the strings. So the idea so far in the series is that we've been playing the chords in a linear fashion up and down the guitar fretboard, just like we've been doing so far in this session. So the next step we're going to do is take our G diminished chord and we're going to play it on the first string set and then move it over to the low string set. So the first time we'll be playing the G diminished on strings 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we're going to move it over to the low strings and play a G diminished on strings 3, 4, 5 and 6. Let's have a look firstly, and then once you've got the idea you might like to try it as well. The next thing we're going to do is play our A-flat 6 chords and then do this string set jumping. In other words, where we're moving the G diminished chords across the strings. Let's have a listen to how that sounds. Here's another exercise using the same concept of the diminished chords moving across the strings, only this time we'll start higher up on the fingerboard and then move down. Here goes. The next step will be to play our A-flat major 6 diminished scale using the borrowed note concept. Now if this concept is new to you, you'll see a link in the top right hand corner of this video where you can check out how this works. Okay, here we go. Here's one more example using the borrowed note idea. This time we're playing a chord and then a series of single notes. Okay, well let's leave the borrowed note concept for the moment and move on to a new idea, which is really going back to basics and rethinking about things that we already know. So let's begin by playing a very simple 5-to-1 cadence, what we call a perfect cadence. And since we're working in the key of A-flat, I'm going to play an E-flat triad to an A-flat 6th. Let's have a listen to that first. The next step is I'm going to take this E-flat triad and move it up the guitar fingerboard in a series of minor thirds. In other words, I'm going to play an E-flat triad, then move it up a minor third, which is the distance of 3 frets, and that will produce a G-flat triad, then moving that G-flat triad up another 3 frets, another minor third, and that will produce an A major triad, and then moving that A major triad up another 3 frets, and that will produce a C triad. Let's have a listen to that. And now here's the really interesting part. We're going to take the root note in each one of these triads that we've just played and raise the pitch of that root note a semitone higher. And when we do that, we will have created a diminished chord. Let's have a look how that works. I'll start with an E-flat triad, raise the pitch of that E-flat up to E, and we have notes from an E diminished chord, E, G and B flat. Let's go to the next triad where we had a G flat triad. I'm going to raise that G flat up a semitone, and then we have the note G. And if we have a look at these three notes, G, B flat and D flat, we'll see that those notes are from a G diminished chord. Moving on to the A triad, I'm going to raise the pitch of the A up to A sharp or B flat. And once again, these notes, B flat, D flat and E, are all notes from a B flat diminished chord. And now on to the C triad, raise the pitch of the C note, a semitone, and we have a D flat or C sharp note. And when we add that D flat note together with E and G, we once again have notes from a diminished chord. Let's have a listen to that. The significance of what we've just done, apart from creating an interesting sound, is that we've also created some new ways of introducing movement into our music. And what I mean by that is, if we have a look at the various diminished chords that we've created, in other words, we've created an E diminished, a G diminished, a B flat diminished, and a D flat diminished. And if we put all those notes together, you'll see that they spell the notes in a G diminished chord. And if you recall what we did right back at the beginning of this session, we discovered that the chords that are produced from an A flat major 6th diminished scale are A flat 6th and G diminished. So what that means is we can create movement by moving from these triads that we started with, turning them into a diminished chord, and then resolving it to an A flat 6th chord. We've moved from a triad to a diminished chord and then the major 6th chord. Let's have a listen to that. And now here's one more example, just to give you an idea of some of the possible ways that you can move between chords using this type of concept. Well, that's it for this session, folks. I do hope there's something there that you can use in your music. Don't forget, if you like the type of thing we're doing and you enjoyed this lesson, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us out and it ensures that you don't miss out on any future lessons. Until next time, bye for now.